it's Reagan, and today I'm here to do probably one of my favorite videos to film every year. That's right, today I'm going to be talking about some of my must-read fall book recommendations. Fall. Probably, perhaps my favorite season of all the seasons. I love the clothing. I decked out today for the video. I have a turtleneck on. I have corduroy overalls. I'm ready for fall. I have a candle lit. Everything's all set. Fall is the beginning of longer nights, a little creepy atmosphere, lots of rain, the feeling of chill in the air. It's the best reading season out of all the seasons, in my personal opinion. So anyway, without further ado, I have a stack of books here that I think are full of great ambiance or great adventure, or just a lovely book to pick up on a cool fall day where you just want to get some great reading in. So anyway, without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive right in. First book I'm going to recommend is a recent all-time favorite of mine, and that is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. Not only is this fantasy novel full of incredible atmosphere, a really wonderful and intense story, but it is just one that, like, I just wish in so many ways I wrote myself. This is a Rumpelstiltskin magical folklore-inspired retelling set in medieval Russia. We follow three different young girls and their lives intertwine in very interesting ways. Each of them at the beginning of the story are in very unfortunate circumstances. One is the daughter of a poor Jewish family and her father is a moneylender. Another is the daughter of a poor abusive farmer. And lastly, one is the daughter of a powerful lord, but because she is deemed ugly, she is seen as worthless in the family. This is a story first centering around this idea of someone being able to turn silver into gold. There is elements of that Rumpelstiltskin retelling, and it is incredibly interesting how that is intertwined. There are folklore magical elements, but the best part of the story is following these three young girls essentially come into their own power, like take back their own destiny. You see them basically shed the expectations and the understanding of the time period and just take names themselves. And it is just such a great and inspiring story with a wonderful historical setting and a lot of really great fantastical elements. I love this book. This wouldn't be a fall reads recommendation video if I didn't have a book about witches. So the next book I'm going to recommend is The Price Guide to the Occult by Lesley Walton. Lesley Walton is one of my all-time favorite authors. Her ability to write characters and atmosphere to me is unparalleled. This is a newer release and it is about witches. It follows our main character, Nora Blackthorn. She has lived a very normal and unremarkable life, living on the small touristy island she has always called home, and this is exactly what she wants. And out of nowhere, a very mysterious book appears and magic begins to appear on the island, very dark magic, and essentially a storm is coming for Nora and she has to do everything in her power to save herself and the small town she lives in. This is a very dark, magical centered story. It has great atmosphere. It's set in the Pacific Northwest and you can kind of just feel the rain and the mist and the fog, and when murders begin to kind of appear in the middle of this book, it will just keep you on the edge of your seat. It's creepy, it's dark, and the magical elements I feel like are incredibly effective. It's a great short book. Next novel I'm going to recommend is City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. Victoria Schwab is one of my all-time favorite writers, and I feel like her novels are just perfect really for any season, but especially for the colder months. This is a recent release by Miss Schwab and it's set in Edinburgh. It follows a young girl who has the ability to see and interact with ghosts after her near-death experience. Living in America, she encounters some ghosts, but it isn't so much of a life-altering experience. Then her parents, who are actually ghost investigators themselves, get a job in Edinburgh and she has to move there, where she encounters a lot more ghosts and where she quickly realizes that a lot of these ghosts are not so friendly. From there, our main character has to begin to accept and learn how to use her own supernatural powers. This is a novel that has a lot of mystery, the ghost element, and particularly I think the Edinburgh element is really great. Victoria Schwab lives in Edinburgh, I think partially, or has lived there, and you can really feel her knowledge of the city in this story. It honestly really transports you as you're kind of walking the dark, eerie streets yourself. This is a perfect ghost-centered fall read, a little ghost story to keep you up at night. The next book I'm gonna recommend is Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. This is the new novel set in the world of the Remnant Chronicles, and one that I really enjoyed. This is much more of a fun, fast-paced, centered fantasy novel to kind of pick up and read when you have like a cool, chilly weekend and you're just staying in. This is a dual perspective story following two main characters, Jace, who is the new head to a long kind of criminal mob-like family in this fantasy setting, and then Cassie, who is a recent reformed thief. Cassie is now the Queen's Guard and has been sent by the Queen to investigate Jace's family. Their lives quickly intertwine, and it kind of begins as a love-to-hate love story, but from there, extreme politics and a lot of twists and turns kind of tears them apart in ways that make sense, but is so angsty to read, and you're just dying to get to the end and you're just hoping for the best. This fantasy story is incredibly entertaining. It is really, really lifted by the two main characters that are so likable and you just want them to be happy. I also really enjoyed the familial aspects of the story. I think this sort of mob fantasy setting is something I haven't really encountered very often in YA fantasy, and I thought it added an interesting element. I don't know, I really liked it. This book also had some interesting flashbacks to give a little more perspective on the origin story of this world, which makes me really feel like this is a non-standard fantasy world, and I can't wait to learn more about that. I thought this was a highly entertaining first installment in this series that will just entertain you the entire time. I read it in like 2 sittings, so I had to recommend. Speaking of dark, angsty stories, next I have The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is a fae-centered story that is dark and delicious and just everything that you want in some fae fantasy. This follows our main character Jude, and when she was 7 years old, her parents in the like human world were murdered by her fae father. She's half fae, half human. From there, herself and her sisters are swept away and transported back to this fae realm. So from the age of 7 onward, Jude and her sisters have been raised in a very unusual place, that being the fae world. It's an interesting setup, being that she is half fae, half human, and she is the daughter of a very powerful lord. Therefore, politically speaking, no one can really ostracize her, but doesn't mean they have to be nice to her either. She has been raised to try to assimilate with these other fae children, but everyone is very different. They're very cruel, they're very shallow, and they have no interest in Jude or her sisters except tormenting them. So when given the opportunity to essentially be a spy to help a political upstarter take the throne, she takes that chance, and so begins a very dark, political centered fae story with a lot of angsty moments. The second book does come out soon. I really want to reread this story. It captured my attention from page 1. It is absolutely enchanting, so good. I need the second one now. So we've had ghosts, we've had witches, and now it's time for some demons. The next book I'm gonna recommend is The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Redding. This is a charming middle grade story following our main character, Prosper Redding, who's a part of a very illustrious New England family. They have been in the United States since the colonial times, and since the colonial times they have been haunted by a demon. And at the beginning of the story, our young protagonist Prosper Redding is possessed by this said demon, and he spends the entire story trying to get this demon out of his body to save and protect his family. Along the way, he uncovers a lot of secrets about his family, and a lot of antics also occur. This is the perfect fall Halloween book to read. It's set in Salem, Massachusetts. He stays in a haunted house. His best friend is a witch, and it just has great humor and fall Halloween times. It's just truly a lovely little book. Another element I really enjoyed is reading Prosper Redding interact with this said demon. Their dialogue and banter could at times be quite funny, and it's just like a fun middle grade horror kind of story. Truly, like, this is the book to read on Halloween. It just has so much fun, dark fall vibes, people. And the very last book I'm gonna recommend to pick up this fall is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. The second book of this comes out so soon. Vicious is a longtime favorite novel on my channel. It is truly a really dark and gripping story, and therefore I feel like a perfect fall read. This is a book about two arch nemeses, Victor and Eli, who were roommates in college and both geniuses. And in college, Victor and Eli are working together to write their thesis of essentially exploring the concept of near-death experiences creating supernatural powers. And when this thesis kind of transforms from purely academic pursuits to real-life application, their friendship begins to drift apart, and that's when they became arch nemeses. Now there's a bit of a gray area between this occurrence and the start of this book. We find Victor newly released from prison, digging up dead bodies, Eli seemingly being the hero of them all, and this is a tale of two people going at it, trying to just ultimately destroy each other. This novel is absolutely fascinating. I mean, first following them in college and trying to understand how this concept can come to life, but also seeing them spiral, not only from their friendship becoming enemies, but also just seeing them spiral as humans and seeing their lack of empathy and understanding. It's a dark, dark, dark story, but also unbelievably captivating. It is just so good, and it's been years since I've read this book, and I can't wait for the second one, so I need to pick it up. I know this is also going to be a movie. I don't know. You just need to read it. It's incredible. Just two masterminds trying to defeat and destroy each other from page one. It's riveting. Alrighty guys, those are all of the fall reading recommendations. Let me know down below some books you think I should read this fall, as I would love to know, and I'll see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye.